Hey everyone, this is Sandeep back with another video. And in today's video, I'm going to continue build our movie Mania site. So this is a JavaScript project series, which I think I'm running maybe from last 4 or 5 videos, right? So in this video, we are going to build or we are going to complete our autocomplete component. So we're going to build the UI of autocomplete component in this part of the video. So the link for this video playlist or the series playlist is in the description. You can go and watch the previous videos also, because if you haven't watched the previous videos, I don't think so this video is going to help you understand anything. So this is a project which I have broken down into multiple videos. So let's jump into the video. So I'll quickly give you the recap in the last part of the video what we did, right? So in the last part of the video we have so I'm going to run this project basically. Let's open it with the live server. Just let's have a quick recap, right? So when I type something here, we are loading that data, that movie data from the movie website, right? So if I type this, let's say suppose inception, we get back the data, we are sending the call, right, to the search, and we are getting the results back. So we are getting the movies back, right? Now, what we want to do, we basically need to create some kind of a component, autocomplete component. So I need to go to Bulma. I'm going to show you like how I'm using Bulma also in this part of the video. So I'll go to docs. So when I click on, so let's go to elements. Maybe it's components, okay? Drop down. So for like the drop down here, like it's something like this, right? So I want to use this part only where, we have this this list. I'm going to keep the input as it is, but I'm going to open this part. This is the UI which I'm going to render. Inside that, we're going to show the small thumbnail, the image, and the title of the movie. So we have the data, right? Now let's create the component. So we'll think from the reusability perspective also. So I'm going to have a section here. So let's start with the section here. And I'm going to give it a class name of autocomplete. So let's give it a name of autocomplete, something like this. So entire autocomplete component with the input I'm going to render inside this section. So later on, in future, user can pass the name of the section, and it will be the responsibility of our code to actually build that component by itself, right? So that it can be reusable. So let's do that. So what I'm going to do, so I'm going to move this input also into that autocomplete part. So I have created a section here. I'm going to remove this. So this section, so I'm going to target this element to render my autocomplete component. So let's save it. Let's go to our main.js and we'll start with, first of all, targeting this element. Maybe I can comment this is the code related to autocomplete component, something like that. Okay, and here I'm going to paste this. So we need our autocomplete. So let's give it autocomplete, and I'm going to target that element autocomplete. Okay, let me check the class name once again. That's correct. So now we are targeting that element, and now let's render some HTML into this component, right? So autocomplete dot we have. And this is a style of coding you can always use to build your components, right? So you can use the inner HTML part, and then you can use the JavaScript string literal syntax, right? Using the backticks. So these are the backticks where I can combine string with JavaScript expressions. So here inside this, I'm going to put first, a label. I'm going to use a label component inside that. So let's use a label here, and let's give it a label of search movies, something like this. Okay, and after the label, now I'm going to use Bulma, and I'm going to copy paste some of the structure from here. So I need to build this drop down, right? This drop down. So let me copy this part. So I'll show you like how you can save your time. I'm just going to copy the entire structure like this div, and then I'm going to close this div here. Inside that div, we have this part. This is our drop down trigger, right? So let me copy that drop down trigger also. So let's put that drop down tick trigger and let's close the div, and we'll start using the formatting also. And inside that, we have this button, right? So, but I don't want to use that button, right? I have my input, which I'm going to use. So I'm just going to go back to my HTML and I'm going to copy this HTML, this input from here, and I'll put it here. So this is our name input. Okay, so this will be a drop down tick trigger. So I'm going to remove this part now because I don't need it, because this is where I'm going to render my entire component. Let's save this. Go back to main.js. Now we have the first part ready, right? The second one is that drop down, right? So I'm going to copy and paste this entire thing from here into my HTML, right? So I need to do some formatting, maybe. Drop down trigger. Let's put it something like this. Okay. So now, if now how that how that list in the drop down menu is going to shown, right? It depends on this is active class. So I'm going to save it. I'll show you. In our HTML, we will be able to see that. See that we're seeing the same thing. And see, I mean, if you create all of these things by yourself, it's definitely going to take some time. So if you're building some projects for yourself, right, it's a really good idea. You can go ahead and use the open source CSS libraries just to prototype things easily. I mean, that's what I do, and I'm going to show you like how you can write your own CSS also. Okay, just to manipulate the things you want. So this is how it is going to look. Now what I want, right? So why we are able to show this drop down? We are able to show this drop down because of this is active class. So if I remove this is active class and if I save, that drop down is gone. Okay, so this is the state which is needed, right? This is where I want to be. And when I type something, right, when I type something here, then I'm loading the data, and that data is coming at that time. I'm loading the data. When I'm loading the data, I'll show you that also. Here we are fetching the movies using the search API. We're getting the data, right? The response. And that response now I want to, and maybe I have that in my console now. Okay, so we're getting some error, cannot read properties of add event listeners. That is because of the name input. So that we have written as add event listener input. Okay, so what is the name input? So we are checking for input, and here obviously because I have my input is name input, right? That's the class name. And here how I'm targeting that element. Okay, I'm targeting that element here, but I'm rendering all of my element here. So I need to just move my code here and that should go away, because obviously I'm rendering that input here, and after rendering only I can target that element. So I'm going to save, and that should remove that error. Okay. So now when I'm typing, right, I'm getting the data back, and I'm going to use that data and I'm going to render my drop down, right? So let's try to type something, maybe inception again, and let's see, we are getting the data, right? So it's data dot results. So this is what I'm going to pass. So data dot results, when I'm loading that, fetch movies, inside fetch movies here. So here I'm going to call a function and I'm going to pass data dot results. So let me type that data dot results. This is what I'm going to pass to a function, and maybe I can give it a name of that function would be render search results. Maybe I can call that function as render search results, and I will pass this data. So let's copy this render search result, and let's write that code here, maybe, right? Just above here, would add that function. This will be a function, or maybe I can say const, and this will be my movies data, right? I'm going to have movies, list of movies, and so when we are passing just one argument, I can remove this also. You don't need to use curly brackets. Now here I'm going to render all my movies, right? So all the list of movies which I'm getting, and that we are going to render inside this, right? This drop down content. So let's give it our own class name, right? So maybe I'll give it a name of movie list so that we can target it and we can render. So I'm going to keep this anchor for now just to see, right? Or maybe I'll keep just one anchor and we're going to use that. So this part now, which is hard coded, right? This part now I'm going to create dynamically and I'm going to put inside my movie list. So let's first target this element because we need a container for all those lists. And that list I'm going to generate from my movies data, right? So first of all, I'm going to grab some of the, query selector code so that I shouldn't write or repeat that. And we need to target. So this will be our movie list. Okay. And that will be this movie list component. So I'm going to grab that div where I'm going to render all of my movie list. So let's do that. So I'm going to use for in loop or for off loop. So let movie off. So this is basically, you can use for loop also. This is another syntax which I wanted to show you. So I'm going to loop through all the movies. So here I'm going to get the first movie. I'm going to render it. Then the second movie, I'm going to render it. Something like that. Okay. And here inside this part, which is hard coded, I'm going to create through, sorry, I'm going to create through JavaScript. So for that, I need to create the anchor element, right? So let's create the anchor element, or we can call it movie also, but let's keep it anchor. Document dot create element I can use, not create text node, create element. And I wanted to create the anchor element, right? And that anchor element now I'm going to generate through my JavaScript, right? So I need to add all those classes also. So I'm going to say class list dot add. So we need to add this class also, right? Because this is a drop down item. So everything I'm trying to do through JavaScript here. Okay. So this is my anchor element, I would say, right? Now I'm going to render that entire movie thing inside this anchor element. So I need to grab some of the data from the movies, right? So I'm going to grab my image. And so if you look into each movie, right, we got the image and we got the title. So that's what I'm using, the destructuring syntax of JavaScript. And from each movie, I'm going to grab the image and title. And now inside my anchor, I'm going to render that. So anchor dot same kind of structure in our HTML than our string literal syntax like JavaScript. Template string syntax we can use. And inside that, now I'm going to generate my structure. So let's generate it through a div. I will give it, later on, I'm going to use all these classes. So I'm giving it the name of movie. Okay. And inside this movie, I'm going to have, so again, I'll go to Bulma. I need image, right? So maybe I'll grab some image related CSS from here. So where are images? This is the image part, right? So let's grab this figure and let's put it here. Okay. And now I want to replace this source part, right? So I'm going to go with 32 by 32. So there is a class for 32 by 32. I know that. So the size of the image will be small. And this source now I'm going to replace with my JavaScript syntax. So that will be the image, because that's what I'm getting here. And next I want to put the title also, right? So for the title, I'm going to use paragraph. You can use heading also, but I'm using paragraph here. I'm trying to be semantic with my HTML. And let's put the title here. Title, something like this. Okay. So now I'm getting the data, right? I'm grabbing the data and I'm generating all of this HTML, right? So I'm going to remove this anchor from here because I'm generating all of that data now dynamically. But as I told you, right, to show that drop down data, we need to add that is active class, right? So that's what we need to do first. So I need to grab my drop down also, right? So let me grab my drop down also from here. Something like this, maybe not here actually. I need to grab it after I have generated my HTML, right? After this, I'm going to cut it from here. I'll put some related code here, something like this. And I will paste it again. And now I want to grab that drop down with the class name of drop down. I'm grabbing the drop down because I want to add the is active class. Then only this drop down menu will be available. That's how Bulma handles it. So we need to understand Bulma also, right? How Bulma doing the things. So let's do that. So I'm going to say drop down dot class list dot add, and let's add the is active class. So that will bring the drop down for us. Okay, let's see. Let's keep the fingers crossed. I think it should work fine if we don't get any errors. So I'm going to search for inception and let's see what we get. Okay, so we got some error maybe. What is the error? Maybe in the network. I'll go and see. I think we are getting the data, right? We are getting the data, but it is not getting rendered. We're getting all the movies also, right? So this is a search. We got the data, but the results are not shown because I did some mistake. Okay, so let's go through it. So I have this movie list, which is my this drop down, right? And I'm looping through movies. I'm creating the anchor tag. I'm putting the HTML, but okay, but I'm not adding that into movie list. So let's do that. So let's append. Okay. Let's copy this movie list because I haven't added my anchor tags into my movie list, and we're going to use append child for that. And let's append the anchor. That should do the job. Inception, and probably we're getting, see that? We're getting the data and it's getting rendered, right? But there are some improvements which we need to do, right? I mean, this title, it's not the way I want. It's going behind the image. The image size is looking good. So that's where, either you can use Bulma to format this or you can write your own CSS. So I'm going to go with my own CSS. So I wanted to show you that also. So let me create a new file called styles. This will be our own CSS so that you know how to write your own CSS also. Here, first of all, I'm going to put this is a standard format I follow, just to use the rem as a unit. And I always set my font size to 62.5%. So this is exactly 10 pixel. So if I type 1 rem, it is 10 pixel. Okay. And this is again CSS. I don't want to cover a lot of CSS into it. So let's target our elements now. So first of all, I'm going to target my movie, right? And let me copy this movie and I'll give it a display of flex. Okay. And I'll use align items center. So if I save this, and I need to include the CSS also. So for that, I'm going to just copy this and paste it here. And just replace this with your own styles.css. Now if I save and if you go back, okay, I need to load it again. Okay, so we're getting right. So now they're coming side by side, but there are some issues with my formatting, right? So let's do that. Formatting part. So I'm going to give some margin. Maybe let's give it a margin bottom of 1 rem, and that should do. Let's save. Now you see the spacing is there, right? I need some spacing between this title also. I'm going to use the gap property of display flexbox. So I'm going to give the gap of 1 rem, and that should help, I think. Yeah. So we are getting the spacing also. Now the next thing I need to do is, right, so we're getting those list of movies that there are 20 movies, right? This is getting longer. Maybe if I can make this this drop down small, maybe small, and I'll keep all of these list items scrollable, right? And I'll show you how to do that. So for that, we're going to target this element, this drop down menu, this drop down content actually. So let's target this drop down content, and let's give it a height basically. So I'll give it a height of maybe like 20 rem. Let's try that and go to save. See that now the height is small, right? But the list items are getting overflown, right? They're going out of that box. So to contain all those items inside that box, so there is a property called overflow y, because I want to use it in only in y direction. So let's give it a scroll. So you'll see the scroll bar. See that? This is beautiful, right? So easy, right? And you can do things if you know CSS. I think you can do things really easily. Okay. So now we got the movies, right? But there are some issues. Maybe if I remove this, nothing is happening, right? I'm getting some error also. Maybe I'll show you that error. So if I go to network panel and if I go to the last part, you see that we are not getting the data back, and we're not able to remove this also. So let's handle this. So first of all, let's not pass the empty search input. Okay, so let's handle that part first. So whenever there is a empty string for the search, I don't want input to work. So let's put that code here, because on input I'm sending that request, right? So I'm going to check here if e dot target dot value is equals to empty. If it is empty, I'm going to remove this drop down, right? So let's do that. So to remove that drop down, we need to do this. Just copy this and remove that class. Very simple, right? And instead of add, just remove that. Okay, if there are empty result. Else, I'm going to fetch the movies, right? Okay, so this is done. I'm going to save. And there is a possibility, right? When you are entering any search term and if there is no data, right? So what's going to happen if I enter something gibberish, something like this, and if there is no data, right, then this is going to come, right? And we don't want let it happen. So to do that, I think we are getting the results back, but that those results are null. If I show you here, if I go back here, see results are empty. Either it will be empty or either it will be null. So there is both. Both the possibilities are there. So that I'm going to handle here. So when I'm searching, right, I'm fetching the movies, and inside fetch movies, if I come down, right, I'm calling this render search result function, right, or render movies, anything we can call it, right? So here inside this only, I'm going to do one thing. So let's check for the movies, right? So I'm going to check if movies is not, say, equals to null. Okay, if that is null, and if movies dot length is equals to 0. In both the cases, right, I want to return. I don't want to show, I don't want to render the drop down itself, right? And maybe I have added the class, so I'll remove this class also. Because say suppose you have first searched for the inception, you got the data. Next time you have entered some gibberish value, right? So we need to remove that class because if it is already there. Let's test this part. If I enter something gibberish, you see that I'm not getting anything. Okay. I'm still showing the drop down because we are getting, why we are showing the drop down, I want to understand. Okay, so we are getting the movies probably. Okay. I want to see only XHR request. I don't know where is that request. Maybe I'll clear and I'll type again. Okay, so this is where, so we're getting the results back. That is an empty array. And I'm checking that, right? Movies.length, if movie is equals to null, or I think I need to use or because if it is null, or if its length is equals to 0, I'm going to remove that class. And let's now type something gibberish. Okay, so now I think the drop down is not coming. So this is working fine. And if I type something valid, then I'm getting the data and I'm able to scroll also, right? Cool. So the next thing I need to do is, right, when I click outside somewhere in the document, I want to remove this drop down, right? And we can do that. So I'm going to listen for an event on the document. Okay, so on the document, I'm listen for an event. So I'm going to write that code here only. So I'll say document.add event listener, and we will listen for the click event. Okay, and let's write a function here. And here you're going to get the event. So I'm going to say E. So now here I'm going to check when I'm going to click on the document. If I click on my component, right, my autocomplete component, I don't want to hide it. But if I click anywhere else, I want to hide it. So that's the logic I'm going to write. So for that, this is specific code you can write. You can check. You can target your autocomplete and you can check if autocomplete contains. So if my click, when I'm going to click, we're checking whether I have clicked on autocomplete or somewhere else. So I'm going to check if e.target. So I'm checking if I have clicked anywhere else. I'm checking whether autocomplete contains this target. So if I have clicked on document, you tell me autocomplete has document? No, because I have clicked on autocomplete. If I click here, it's going to remove. So basically we need to just write this syntax. Little bit complicated maybe. So I'm checking. Did I click on the document or did I click on autocomplete? So maybe I'll show you something like this. I'll first log it, right? Console.log e.target. So let's do that first. So if I'm clicking here, right? I need to show the console. I'll show you maybe here. You see that I'm clicking on the document, right? Maybe I'll open the console here. Maybe let's make me a little bit small. I'm clicking. If I click here, right, I'm clicking on the actual autocomplete. So if I click on autocomplete, I don't want that drop down to go. But if I click on anywhere else, it should go. So that's the syntax I'm trying to write here. If the click is, so if I click on document, obviously autocomplete doesn't contain the document, right? Document actually contains the autocomplete. So that's what I'm trying to do here. So I'm just going to remove that drop down, right? So just copy and paste this code. That's it. That's what you need to do. Just remove the isActive class and it will go away. Let's test this. So inception, we got the data, right? And I can scroll through it, right? Now if I click here, it's not going, right? Here, it's not going. Here, it's not going because I'm clicking on the autocomplete. But if I click somewhere else, there you go. It's going away, right? I can type again. Again, the data is coming, right? If I'm clicking here, it's not going away, but see how the data is getting rendered. And if I click somewhere else, maybe like here, it's going away. Cool. So you see that, right? I think we are almost ready with our autocomplete component. I'm just going to put some touches, maybe like CSS related changes. Let's put some strong tag here just to make it bold, that search part. And if I save and come back, see that? And let's maybe give it a space also here. Okay, so this is looking good, right? So now we have the search feature added into movie. We have loaded some of the top 250 movies. That part is not available, but I'm going to plug all those things together, maybe at the end. But now we have the search part ready. So if I search for any movie, right, that's coming, the list of movies are coming. And it's taking some time. So we should show some loader also, right? Something like that, maybe a loading part or something like that. And then we can hide that loader. I'll add all that code and maybe show you to you. So maybe we can take that cosmetic part at the end of the application. Okay, so now next thing I need to do is when I click on this, any of the movie, right, I'm going to show the details about that movie, right? That should be a good idea to show. So I'm going to stop here because I know this video is getting longer. I'm going to cover that part where, when I click on any of the item, I'm going to show the details about the movie, the next part of the video. This is series, that's why I'm creating small videos so you get time to practice. And it's a good idea, to put all this application into your portfolio also. So I'm going to stop here. I hope you understood how we can leverage the HTML and JavaScript together to create the components like this. So in the last part, I have loaded the data. In this part, I have rendered the data, right? So I'm going to see you in the next video. Until then, you take care. Goodbye. And thanks for watching the video.